everyone. Welcome back to Maybe It's Spiritual. Thank you for listening again. We appreciate you. Those of you who are on Apple, Spotify, leave us a 5-star. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. We are on Instagram, Maybe It's Spiritual. TikTok, Maybe It's Spiritual. YouTube now, also Maybe It's Spiritual. If you would like to be on the show, we would love to hear from you. Send us a Gmail at maybeitspiritual@gmail.com. We want to tell your story. Don't be afraid. We're all super nice, and we can do Zoom if you are afraid. All right, everyone. We are in studio with Matt, Nick, and myself. Hello, everyone.
What's up?
Hey, guys.
What's going on?
We got Nick back in the house, which that's exciting. Finally in the house. And then we have a new voice. Not new. You've heard him before. Matt Wandell. He's a secret agent. Anyway, so tonight we're doing Surprise Attack. Matt and I have picked topics that we sort of don't know what the other one is talking about, and the other two guys don't know what we're talking about at all, although Matt's probably looking at my notes right now. But
I'm not.
the other Matt.
This is gonna get
There's gonna be a lot of Matt confusion tonight. Anyway, who's going first? Do we decide?
Hoffman's going to surprise
Nick's
attack
gonna
us
he's gonna do
with who
topic
was
roulette.
going first.
Matt's gonna go first.
Matt's going first. Which one?
Matt's going.
This is already really confusing to our listeners.
That's Mike talking.
Mike's talking.
No, Matt H.
All right, I'll go.
Blue folder Matt.
Today's surprise attack is the Tombstone Thunderbird. Have you guys heard of it?
I've heard of Thunderbirds.
Okay. You heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of
Okay.
this.
I have heard of it. I've seen the picture, but that's it.
Okay, cool. So my friend Connor, who goes to church with us
And hates podcasts.
and hates podcasts, and told me he hates the internet and will never listen to a podcast, said he's going to listen to this podcast, and it'll be the first podcast, maybe a spiritual podcast, that he's ever listened to.
And
So
the
hi,
last.
Connor. Welcome. We're talking about the Tombstone Thunderbird. This is his topic. This is, he said you should talk about this topic because he thinks it's cool. And I was like, all right. So I Googled it, and I saw some really weird pictures. And you guys do me a favor. If you have your phones with you, just Google image search Tombstone Thunderbird right now. And if you're listening, please do the same thing.
Right now.
So
Right.
just to give us some,
Go ahead
give,
and pause the podcast. Look it up. And
You don't-
come back to us when.
you don't have to pause it because everyone's looking it up right now. And I'm just vamping to kill time.
All right. Are we looking at the photo?
Looking at photos.
It's a big old
Okay.
bird.
It's a big old bird. What does it look like to you?
A pterodactyl.
Pterodactyl. So, those photos are probably fake.
Oh.
Just FYI. Those photos are probably fake. There's supposedly a real photo of the Tombstone Thunderbird out there that people remember. Is one of those things that's kind of like
Mandela effect?
it's a Mandela effect thing.
Oh my gosh.
Where literally, thousands of people like on Reddit and stuff are like, I know I've seen this photo, and they all describe this photo of this gigantic pterodactyl-looking bird. They nailed it up to a barn, and they have a bunch of guys in front of it going like that, like doing their wings, with their wingspan
Kind of like for reference.
for reference to show how big this thing is. And I'm going to tell you how big they say it is. Looking at my notes here. All right, so before I get into the story, they say this pterodactyl-looking bird was 92 feet in length with a wingspan of 160 feet.
What?
That's
Huge.
almost half a football field,
What kind of barn did they nail it to?
and slightly smaller than a 747's wingspan.
Okay.
All right. Its beak was 8 feet long, and it had eyes the size of dinner plates, and the jaws held long, sharp teeth.
It's a big boy.
It
Or
had,
girl.
It had smooth skin that easily was penetrated by these cowboys' bullets. So there's this gigantic pterodactyl-looking thing that apparently appeared in 1890. All right?
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying. So I look at that and I'm like, what? I've never heard of anything like this. And so I started doing a little bit of research into it. And you guys want to know the story?
Yes, please.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's more-
Nah.
Move
Nick
on.
says
All right.
no.
Now
Nick's
Wrath is
leaving.
up.
Next topic.
All right. So basically, it doesn't start in Tombstone, Arizona. The Tombstone Thunderbird is named after Tombstone, Arizona, where it was killed, apparently.
Not the pizza.
I don't know if the pizza's named after the city. Maybe. Because Tombstone is like a really famous, like, Old West
Yeah, I know.
city. You know
I've
Tombstone?
seen the movie.
Mhm.
I've seen
Yeah.
Tombstone.
Okay. So, yeah. I think the pizza might be named after that city. I don't know. All right. So, the Tombstone Thunderbird actually starts in L.A. So, previous to 1890, like not by a lot, there was. By the way, this information comes from a book called On the Old West Coast by Major Lawrence Bell, and it was published in 1930 based on Lawrence Bell's writings. Mr. Bell lived and traveled throughout California, Texas, Mexico, Central America in the late 1800s. He had been a miner, a ranger looking for outlaws in the West, a Union officer in the Civil War, and a newspaper editor in L.A. He considered himself a history writer. Although many of his writings were self-described as tongue-in-cheek, he said he was serious about recording history as it happened. So he wrote that there was this lake in L.A. Called Lake Elizabeth, and the former Mexican settlers called it Lake Laguna Diablo, which means the Devil's Lake. Apparently, this lake was haunted, and people would hear like screams coming out of this lake, and like whenever people like settled near this lake, like bad stuff always seemed to happen.
Skinwalkers.
Could be.
Always skip.
It was just weird stuff. Weird stuff was always happening, and people's like businesses would fail. People would be like real like brash, like Americans coming in. They're like, we don't believe in all that nonsense, you know. And they set up shop, and then like within months, they're like, we're leaving. This place is terrible. That happened like a number of times. Like it was chronicled, and so around 1883. So 7 years before the Tombstone Thunderbird was shot down, there were some officers who were nearby, and they saw this huge creature, and like they saw this big thing like flapping around in the lake, like on the like towards shore, like in all this mud, and this gigantic thing, and they're like, what is that? So they get down to it, and this thing comes out, and it's just this massive like pterodactyl looking creature, and they said it was breathing down their faces, and it was like it smelled really bad, and it was terrifying. So they like took off, and this thing like jetted out into the air and like screeched and just like took off. So they got really scared, and they ran away, and they came back and the next day to investigate, and they couldn't see it, but they said that you could still smell it.
Ew.
After a day.
What did it smell like?
It said it smelled bad. They said it could still smell a stench in the air. So during the next week or so, livestock started to disappear, and so they're looking around for this thing, and then one night they heard a creature screeching, and they saw a silhouette of a large winged creature flying across the air. So apparently it starts going west towards Tombstone.
And it came out of the lake?
Came out. Well, that's where they first saw it, yeah. It was in this haunted lake. So in 1886, the newspaper recorded more strange happenings in Lake Elizabeth. The reports were that a large creature was feeding on cattle, horses, sheep, and chickens, and it caused terror and fear amongst the local inhabitants. While trying to take a steer, the owner said that he got a good look at the creature and said it was 45 feet in length, and that its wings lay flat on its back when they weren't expanded. He shot his revolver at the creature, and when his shot hit the side of the beast, he said it sounded like bullets hitting a large iron kettle. So it was seen flying east. Sorry, I said west earlier. It's flying east towards Arizona. But it was never to be seen again in its native valley, because it was shot down and killed in Tombstone, Arizona, as recorded in the Tombstone Epitaph. That was their Tombstone's paper. So already we have some inconsistencies. This guy says it looked like it was 45 feet. The guys who shot it down said it was 180 foot wingspan. So also they said, the guys who shot it down said that its skin was easy to penetrate. The guy who shot it said that when the bullets hit it, it sounded like hitting a large iron kettle. So already some inconsistencies here. So then, here's the main part of the story. On April 26, 1890, in the Tombstone Epitaph, an article written titled "A Strange Winged Monster Discovered and Killed in the Huachacua Desert." So the author said that the creature looked like an alligator with an extremely elongated tail and an immense pair of wings. According to the cowboys who shot the creature, their story was that the creature was only able to fly a short distance at a time, so it kept taking off and landing over the course of 7 miles until it was shot down by the men's Winchester rifles. The creature turned on them, but due to exhaustion and many shots from their rifles, they were able to kill it. So, like I said, it measured 92 feet in length, its wingspan of 160 feet.
Wait, 92 feet long?
That's what it
and
said.
They were able to just shoot it with their Winchester rifles.
Yeah. So its weird alligator body was 92 feet long, and its wingspan was 180 or 160 feet.
Oh my gosh.
So, we'll talk about it more. So apparently the cowboys cut a portion of the wing off and took it with them as proof of what they had experienced, and spread the word about what had happened when they got to Tombstone, Arizona. They planned to return to the site and skin it and give the skin to eminent scientists for examination. That is what the article ends, but we don't know what happens because that was the end of the article, and there was nothing written about it in the Tombstone Epitaph after that. So there's no photograph, but people all over the United States swear that they have seen a picture of this. And this is how they describe the picture. Well, I described it earlier. They have it nailed to a barn, and a bunch of guys have their their arms spread out to show their wingspan, and just showing how big this thing is. And the way that people describe it is they're like, that's exactly what I remember. But you cannot find this picture on the internet. It doesn't exist. And people are like, well, it was in the Tombstone Epitaph. Am I saying that right? Epitaph, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, it was in there, but the was it the United States Congress? Who keeps records of all the periodicals?
Library of Congress.
Library of Congress.
The Congress of Library.
Has a copy of it. You can see.
Sorry.
You can see pictures of this article on online. There's no pictures in the entire newspaper.
It was erased?
People don't know. People don't know. Like, there was in 1963, a men's magazine called Saga, they revived the story, and writer Jack Pearl recounted the story of the Tombstone Thunderbird, along with some large bird sightings of modern day in the early 1960s, and he published a picture taken by two prospectors that shot one down and had the body nailed to a wall and measuring 36 feet in length. That was not the Tombstone Thunderbird. It was just a different one.
Yeah.
And even in 1963, writer Jack Pearl was like, I couldn't find a picture of this, but I know it exists. But
Everyone's convinced.
everyone's convinced this picture exists, and people can like say like, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, it's been in magazines. Like, it's been like in the zeitgeist of American West forever, since 1890.
Good use of the word zeitgeist.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, and it had it was estimated to weigh 20,000 pounds.
20. And they just like lifted it right up and nailed it to the barn. That sounds ridiculous.
So,
We got this.
let's see if there's anything else I can add to this. Oh, so, I mean, there's no proof that this happened, you know, except for these guys said it happened. But you know, as far as we are concerned, there's no proof. You know, we can't say that happened. We can't talk to eyewitnesses. However, in the 1930s, there's an old cowboy in Tombstone, Arizona, that some reporters got a hold of, and he said that he was one of the cowboys who tried to shoot it down. And he basically said the story was like really blown out of proportion. And he's like, it was me and one other cowboy, one other like rancher or whatever, and they like chased it down and shot at it, and it flew away. And he said it was like in the 30-ish feet range, so still very big.
Yeah.
Like wingspan 30 or like the body 30?
Like wingspan 30.
I mean,
It's still a huge bird.
Yeah, that's still massive. Yeah.
And you know, I think, you know, you described it like looking like kind of like a pterodactyl, but it flew away. So I think the whole like 160-foot wingspan thing, 20,000 pounds, I think that's just like a game of telephone. It's just, you know, how legends get.
yeah. Did
you
they
know,
even know
played
what
it.
20,000 pounds was in 1890?
I mean, I don't know what you compare it to. You couldn't be like, well, it's like, you know, like
17 train cars.
yeah, they're like 5 F-150s, you know, or whatever. So
1890.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they wouldn't.
That's
They
back
wouldn't.
then, yeah.
That's like 100 wagons.
Like 100 wagon.
You know how many cows that is, man?
So
It's a whole lot of oxen.
Yeah,
so
it is.
what do you think about that? So like I have a couple thoughts. One, it's crazy that like people were like, yeah, these kind of like creatures did exist, but they weren't as big as that. Like that's kind of the way they talk about it. Like, yeah, these things existed, but and also, I mean, like, it's not like there's not prehistoric stuff still around in the ocean,
Right.
you know?
It's just that it's easier to hide in the ocean.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
much easier for people to see a giant bird flying around than it is, like the Meg.
Yeah.
The Meg. Next surprise attack. The Meg.
It's great Jason Statham movie. Check it out. It's fun.
It is fun. There's a second one coming out now.
I can't wait to see it.
I watched, Small Town Monsters did it's called Terror in the Sky, and they did a documentary about thunderbirds. Actually, a lot of it in Illinois because of all the Mothman and all that stuff that was going on then.
O'Hare.
Yeah, but there was like, I guess Illinois has a lot of like giant bird sightings. And when I was doing my tragic research on the flying manta ray, I found some on.
Check out that episode. or
Don't check out that episode. The Simpsons part is good. The flying manta ray, trash. No, but I think it was in California. Like whoever they reported that one to, I don't even remember the site at this point, but they report like weird things in the sky, and that was on it. It was like a giant bird. Like in California, like somebody saw it like landed on. It was like in the middle of a field, and it was like moving, and it was like way taller than whatever was out there, and it just like flew away. But I don't know.
So
We love John Keel here.
We do love John Keel.
my wife does not mention any sort of like spooky stories to me or anything. But the one story that she has told me involves a giant bird.
Really?
Yes.
She saw one?
Yes. So she grew up in Clinton, Wisconsin, just across the border from
Oh
us
yeah,
here.
Wisconsin.
Okay. So she grew up, small town girl, living on a farm. She said there was one afternoon where she said there was a bird so giant in the sky that she got very concerned over this fact. Grabbed her dog, which is a medium-sized dog, but the bird was so big she was afraid that this bird was going to take off with her dog. So she grabbed the dog, she runs inside. Now my wife doesn't tell me exaggerated stories or anything, but she definitely said this bird was giant. And I want to say she was about maybe 10 years old is what she told me. So big enough to kind of, like old enough to kind of like recognize this is bigger than normal.
Yeah.
I should probably
10-year-olds know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I tried texting my wife real quick just to ask her how old she was, but I want to say she told me she was 10. She hasn't responded to me, of course. I'll cry about it later, but
Dang, that's crazy.
yeah. So like I said, that's the only sort of weird, abnormal story she's ever told me before. So I kind of got to believe that there are abnormally large creatures out there that we are just not aware of or tracking.
Spiritual